2 full British Army companies' worth of migrants illegally crossed the Channel yesterday, 656 of them. They arrived from France, a country recognised by the UK as safe, of course, but will immediately claim asylum, no doubt. Let that number just sink in for a second. 656. That's 40% the average daily birth rate in our country. We are almost importing half a generation of people within 24 hours. All whilst millions of Brits can barely afford to look after their own families, and many of them can't even afford to have kids of their own. So smashing the gangs, eh? Or more like smashing our borders, smashing public trust, and smashing manifesto pledges. And smashing your wallet. Because while the boats keep coming and the smugglers get richer, it's you, the British taxpayer, who picks up the bill. Around 8 million a day is being spent on hotel accommodation for asylum seekers. That amounts to roughly 3 billion a year, part of a wider asylum system cost that exceeded £5 billion last year. Well, meanwhile, your council tax is rising. Services are being slashed, and 1 in 4 councils say they could face bankruptcy in the next 2 years. There's always money for illegal migrants, though, isn't there? Hotel rooms, meals, legal aid, interpreters, the full works. But for British people, it's always, there's no money left. GPs are overwhelmed, schools are full, roads are falling apart, and you're being asked to pay more for considerably less. Meanwhile, how do you think the hundreds of millions given to France to stop the boats is going? Well, shock new audio revealed the French Navy have been requesting the UK Border Force to return, get this, life jackets which were loaned to illegal migrants crossing the Channel. What an absolute farce. It is increasingly obvious to me that our border force is becoming nothing more than a concierge service for economic migrants. The Labour's idea of smashing the gangs is clearly about as effective as a chocolate teapot, in my opinion. The gangs aren't scared, they are booming. By every data point available, the gangs are winning. They're laughing in the face of Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, and you, the British people. The system isn't broken. It just simply does not exist. And you and me, the British people, we're the ones paying the price. Financially, socially, culturally. Enough is enough. Labour have been in power now for 9 months. They cannot keep blaming the Tories for their own failing policies. Bill, let's start with you. Welcome to the panel. Of course, we've got our fantastic panel, so let me introduce everyone, actually. Broadcaster, writer, Emma Wolfe, businessman and activist, Adam Brooks, former Labour Minister, of course, Bill Rammell. Bill, this is quite a shocking number yesterday. 40% up on the year prior with the Tories. We're talking about the Rwanda deterrent. Many are suggesting that would have at least put some off. This is a runaway problem now. What are Labour going to do about it?
Well, look, the boat crossings are a real concern, not because they're a big proportion of net migration, they're not. It's only about 3% of the total number, but because visibly and symbolically they're a demonstration of whether or not we can control our borders. Now, I am going to refer to the past. The government inherited a shambles with net migration at 1 million people a year.
It was 9 months ago, Bill.
Yeah, no, it was. But come on, with net migration at 1 million people, you don't overturn that overnight. And there is progress being made. We've had record deportations. We've had visa approvals reducing in some categories by as much as 84%. But the boat crossings still remain a real challenge. Now, I think a lot of the policies the government has put in place will work. So, for example, changing the eligibility criteria for being able to access hotel accommodation. Introducing a 24-week deadline for an appeal to reduce the pull factor. Things like the big push on, groups going into the gig economy. Testing migrants' right to work in those circumstances. All of that will make a difference. We also need better and more border cooperation. And We need to work with France, and some of the changes that have recently been around, like the French government changing its policy after the government has pushed it to intervene in shallow waters, can work. But I think we should go further. The government has talked, there's been speculation about it, of processing overseas, not the Rwanda scheme, but processing maybe in the Balkans, maybe in Albania. I think that could make a difference, and we need to move on it strongly.
I was reading there, Adam, about that shocking detail that the French Navy are requesting, allegedly, from the border force of our country to return life jackets. To me, that screams the French are basically saying, have a good trip.
Look,
hope you stay alive, of course. We don't want anyone to die in the channel. I don't want anyone to die. In fact, part of stopping this crisis, stopping people dying.
Of course.
Frankly.
Look, the French do not want these people on their shores either. Let's have it right. Migrant crime is rife in Calais and in Dunkirk. We've had machete wars, we've had gunshots, we've got gang problems in those areas. In a few months, those people are all over here. So it's a safety issue. I go on about migrant crime. They are disproportionately more likely, and asylum seekers, to commit sex crimes. Now, as someone with a wife and a mother and two daughters as well, I do not want these people in this country.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we've got people from Sudan, Afghanistan, Iran, Eritrea. There are people, they should not be coming here. We've got Germany that's halting its UN refugee settlement programme. We've got Poland suspending migrants' rights to apply for asylum. We've got Hungary opting out of the EU migration policy. Denmark has a zero refugee policy. Why can't we do things like that now? We need to send the message to those beaches in France with leaflets or whatever. If you try, you get nothing when you come. And you watch. They won't come over. If they don't think they're getting a hotel and free money, they won't come.
Emma, in my opinion, smash the gangs is a policy. I think the government are going to have to say, hands up, we failed. Do you think that's already the case with the policy, or do you think they need a bit of a longer shot?
Look, they don't smash the gangs and they don't stop the boats. And it's actually worse than, they're not just failing. Keir Starmer's almost given up. He's now just resorted to saying it's really bad. It's a really bad situation. I think Yvette Cooper may be in line for being the worst Home Secretary ever, and we've had a few hopeless Home Secretaries. We're not just a soft touch at this point, we're actually welcoming them with open arms, and it's worse than what Bill says about it being visually and symbolically bad that we haven't got control of our borders, because when Alex points out that it's 40% of the daily birth rate, it's not just about the warm weather. We know the warm weather. That's like saying the NHS, struggles every winter. We know it's going to be fine-ish weather, sailable weather over the next few months. And these boats just keep on coming and we are doing nothing. Either we need to stop paying the French these millions of pounds, or we admit defeat, or, Alex, we do something. And you know what? When you want to save the British steel industry, they do something. They reconvene Parliament, they pointlessly get everybody back from their holidays, and they get a royal assent through within...
What do you mean pointlessly get people back from their holidays? Because we had to save the steel industry.
Exactly.
Well,
that wasn't known?
So you don't welcome that? You don't welcome that?
I don't want to get on to talk about steel tonight, because this is a big, important topic. We did steel to death, trust me.
Okay.
Bill, what do you make of what Emma's saying?
I don't think it's true. This government desperately wants to reduce net migration. And you say, this is a huge element of it. I want to reduce the boats, but it's 3% of net migration. And there is progress being made on reducing the numbers overall. We had 1 million when we came to office. The projections are net migration next year of 330,000. Now, I want to go further than that, but that is a big, significant reduction. And Adam, we've got a deal in facts. Denmark has not got a zero migration policy. Migrants go into Denmark every day of the week.
Paul, I've read several articles.
You read a lot of stuff on the internet that isn't true.
No, I've read things from actual papers in this country, right? At the end of the day...
Then come on this show next week and demonstrate that Denmark's got zero migrants.
I proved you wrong on a point the other week.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did, Bill, and I'll prove you wrong again. We've had 600 people...
Zero migrants in Denmark.
We've had 600 people cross the channel yesterday. When they're given leave to remain, they will each bring 4 family members, maybe 5. So yesterday, I've got a liability now of about 2,500 people from yesterday alone. Another 5 or 10 years of this, even at the next election, this country will be...
And the fact is...
unrecognisable.
It will be.
We're bringing terrorists in, rapists, criminals. Legal migration, we can track people.
Yeah.
Illegal, we cannot, because they throw their IDs.
Just to clarify, what they have a zero refugee policy as of this year.
Thank you.
I don't know whether that translates
But
to
migrants
numbers.
are coming in to Denmark every week.
Apology, Bill, thank you.
No, migrants are coming into Denmark every week. Go and look at the evidence.
They've got a zero refugee policy.
Yeah, but migrants are coming into the country.
I would say the argument is that they are saying we're going to...
Yeah, you can say all sorts of things, but the
that's
practical
fair.
reality is what matters.
That's important. I mean, look, Emma, the reality is a lot of people are saying this is we used to be the most powerful naval force in the world. How can we not, when we stop the Nazis, for goodness sake, from getting over the channel, how can we not stop people on tiny little dinghies coming over here? Why don't we just tow them back to France and say, you know what, France, you're clearly not helping the situation. We're giving you hundreds of millions of pounds.
We can actually see multiple boats every day. We can visibly see them being launched from the French coast. And now we find out that the French naval force are basically giving them life jackets so that they cross safely. Once they're into our waters, we just bring them in. So they're not only being given a safe passage, and I don't want anyone dying in the channel, I don't want women and children dying in the channel,
Because
but I don't want them crossing.
They throw the women and children off, and that is
Allegedly, all right. Allegedly, all right. Moving on. Big heat, but fiery debates to start here, guys. Thank you.